Welcome. In this presentation, we're going to explain how distributed ledgers can be implemented in the luxury industry. First, we're going to introduce you briefly to the distributed ledger technology and the blockchain. Then, we will present some of the use cases of this technology as a proof of work. Afterwards, we will explain how blockchain provides a solution to the worldwide problem in the luxury goods industry, and then we will explain the implementation and limitations of our solution. The global market for luxury goods is estimated at £219 billion, making it one of the most valuable industries in the world. Nevertheless, the industry suffers a severe threat from fake luxury goods, which are becoming more prevalent and less distinguishable from the authentic. As a result, luxury brands suffer significant losses and struggle to maintain consumer confidence and brand integrity. Customers do not only value their product's authenticity, but also its ethics and origin. Proving that a product has all of these values would therefore be a great gain for a luxury goods company and for the industry as a whole. Lastly, the industry faces problems tracing defects in the supply chain. Customers expect good quality, and therefore tracing defects and finding the source as soon as possible is key to maintaining a good brand image. One technology can do all this, and it's called blockchain. In a moment, we will explain how blockchain will change the world of luxury products, but first, let's get a better understanding of what it actually is. Blockchain is part of a wider technology called distributed ledgers. A distributed ledger is a decentralized database where all users have a copy of the same information. When something happens in the ledger, a record of this will be stored, and everyone will receive an identical copy of this record. Meanwhile, the ledger is managed by potentially everyone. This makes it possible to do transactions or keep records of something without having to trust another party to keep it safe. Blockchain relies on the same principle as well, and has one extra advantage. Apart from storing a copy of the record, it also is impossible to change anyone's copy. This is because every time something happens in the ledger, the information is stored in a block permanently forever, and this block receives a timestamp, which is then connected to the previous block. The result is that it becomes impossible to cheat. But does this mean that everyone can access the ledger? Well, that's entirely up to you. There is a distinction between public ledgers, where everyone can have access, and private ledgers, where only people who are allowed access can access your ledger. For both types, you can decide whether everyone can manage the ledger and verify transactions, or if only certain people can do that. Now, let's talk about some cases that are already implemented. One of the world's biggest pharma companies, GlaxoSmithKline, is working with Viant, an Ethereum-based platform to develop blockchain and pharmaceuticals. According to PwC, counterfeit medication can be both ineffective and dangerous for patients, and represents up to $200 billion in lost sales each year. The Viant platform leverages cryptographic security to ensure products are produced, correctly labeled, transported, and stored in proper conditions throughout the entire supply chain, and track intellectual property licenses. In addition, it also tries to collaborate with prescription issuers such as NHS and pharmacies to verify authenticity so consumers can avoid counterfeit medication. Another use case is from Global Trade Shipping Line that was facing supply chain issues such as fraud in global trade caused by the information trapped in organizational silos, inefficient manual processing, or cumbersome paper-based approaches. Trade needs a digital system to bring all the parts of the supply chain together. More importantly, the inconsistent information across organizational boundaries throughout the supply chain hinders the efficient flow of goods. Therefore, IBM and Maersk created a blockchain-based global trade system. This solution allows the network of industry participants to maintain a distributed, permissioned ledger with copies of document filings, relevant supply chain events, authority approval status, and full audit history. Every change results in a new, immutable block. The concept of technology is based on three primary layers. Each layer plays a distinct role in allowing the stakeholder to extract the most value for their business. First, the network layer enables the user to track, store, and share the shipping information across the actors in the ecosystem. The platform layer is underpinned by a private hyperledger blockchain technology, creating a secure end-to-end audit trail of important shipment information, while the applications and services layer enables the creation of a marketplace that will serve the ecosystem. Now, let us introduce our solution. We are proposing two sets of solutions that you can select from. The first solution is the traceability that enables your company to track the goods along the supply chain process, from the raw resources to the manufacturer to the retailer, where the ledger will carry the information related to the supply chain activity details, for example, the product origin and supplier details. The second solution is the authenticity that enables the customer to check authenticity of the products, where the ledger will include the information about the certificate of ownership. As a luxury company, you want your products to be secured, and our solution offers you this possibility. The idea is to create a digital certificate associated with the product. This certificate will contain all the information concerning the product and will evolve along a blockchain implemented by us. In order for the certificate to contain as much information as possible, the suppliers of raw materials will have to be convinced to implement a certificate associated with every batch of materials they produce. The information contained in the certificates of all raw materials needed for the production of the product will then be gathered under the certificate of the product itself. Then, every time the product is transferred to the other party, the transaction will be written on the certificate along with the timestamp. The advantage for your company is to track the product along the supply chain. This implies that at any time, your company can check where the product is and afterwards where the product was at a specific time without the possibility of that to be tampered. Given the high cost of manufacturing luxury products, enhancing the trust between the stakeholders thanks to the blockchain is primordial. Because we can keep track of who owned the product and when, it means every temporary owner is responsible for the product during a certain period. It means that if a problem occurs, your company will be able to know who is the source of the problem. For example, if a product has a defect, you will be able to track back which batch and which producer is responsible for such a defect, and take a decision based on this information. This authenticity solution gives your company the ability to fight the counterfeit market and take control of the second-hand market, giving buyers information to confirm the authenticity of the product. Each of your products will have its own digital ownership certificate that is created during the purchase from your company. The certificate of ownership will only entail information that the product is authentic and is managed by trusted parties on the blockchain that you allow. The buyers will be able to verify the authenticity of the product using the API or interface, if they're buying from a retailer or in a second-hand market. There is an unprecedented level of transparency by using this technology. With empowering consumers with transparency through the digital certificate of the product, buyers can have access to information that the product is authentic. API Intermediate Transaction Platform for the second-hand market gives the company the ability to intermediate. Global costs of counterfeit markets reach up to 1.8 trillion. More and more customers are getting duped into buying fake products, and authentic brands are losing sales. Hence, the ability to authenticate the product will help the company maintain its reputation among buyers and reinstate the people's confidence in the brand. Each product will have the unique digital certificate. Using API, the technology will allow the exchange of the certificate of ownership between the buyer and the seller. Creating a trusted second-hand market network will fight the counterfeit market and give a higher value to products of the company. Furthermore, owners of your brand will have a higher negotiation power as they can verify the authenticity of the product. Blockchain technology is a trustable, decentralized system. Buyers with the decryption key can have access to information stored in the double permission blockchain through the API. What happens if a customer wants to sell his product? They have two options. The first option is to mention on the designed API that he wants to sell his good. Another customer will mention on the API that he wants to buy a good. The first customer will then have to send the product to a trusted retailer, while the second customer will then send the money. The trusted retailer will redistribute the money and the product and make the transaction valid on the blockchain. The second option is that both parties meet physically, make the exchange, and confirm it on a designed API in order for the trusted retailer to make the transaction valid on the blockchain. So, what are our recommendations? What we recommend is to combine the two solutions in a private double permission blockchain. All the stakeholders will have access to the blockchain, but only a group of trusted stakeholders will be able to write the transactions. The customers will only be able to read the blockchain through a designed API, allowing them to read only certain information that you allow them to. Each block of the chain will contain transactions between different stakeholders of the supply chain, and we will be responsible for verifying the transaction in exchange for a payment. You will still be able to track the product in the supply chain, and you will be able to choose what kind of information you want to disclose. In doing this, You will be able to sell not just a product, but also its story. You're creating a unique product for a unique client. So the product will also be traceable for the client. The information encrypted will show that the raw materials were sourced via fair trade, for instance, increasing the reputation of the company among buyers. Markets are changing, and people want to be connected to the products they own. Information regarding where the raw materials are sourced from and where the product is made, and the point of the sale location can be disclosed on the API. We are now going to see how to successfully implement the blockchain in the entire supply chain with an implementation roadmap. The first thing is to create a culture of collaboration in order to facilitate the trust between all parties, because every stakeholder is signing up for an intensely collaborative endeavor. Stakeholders have to be convinced that the solution creates value for everyone. The second step is to make sure every stakeholder who is allowed to write transactions has the knowledge, the hardware and software required to adopt this technology. We have to empower them with tools and resources to successfully contribute to the blockchain. The next step will be to create a pilot to verify the proof of concept. We will also develop a user-friendly API during this step. The final step is the release of the solution. This will need to be supported by marketing efforts to make sure customers understand the technology and adopt it. Now we're going to discuss some difficulties of implementation. Because first, blockchain is expensive to implement because we need to integrate legacy systems and provide hardware to the suppliers. And we also need to give training to the employees. Secondly, companies may feel a bit uncertain because of its novelty. In addition, although blockchain itself is secure, we do need a bridge between blockchain and the traditional system, which may be vulnerable. Thirdly, people who don't understand the technology might see it as a threat, and companies with a more conservative culture might resist at first. Nevertheless, we think that this technology provides a lot of advantages for your company. Implementing blockchain in the supply chain of your luxury goods company will have 4 main advantages. First, the proof of authenticity of your product will reduce the effect of counterfeit products and will help you win back brand integrity and consumer confidence. Secondly, as your supply chain becomes even more transparent, detecting problems will become highly efficient and less costly. This can only be visible to you and will not be shown to competitors or customers if you don't want to, as your ledgers will be private and managed by you only. Thirdly, you will have proof of ethics and origins, which increases your brand value, especially for conscious buyers. Again, this fully depends on whether you want to implement this, and how much of your supply chain you want to show is entirely up to you. Lastly, as you will have a double permissioned private ledger, you can decide which information you share and with whom. We can design different interfaces for management, customers, and suppliers, so that you will be in charge of your information all the time. As we came to the end of the presentation, we hope you learned a lot about blockchain and are now convinced that the blockchain provides amazing advantages for your luxury goods company.